Here, we honor the first brave flyers who journeyed into space, the ones who have since followed, and those who will follow in the future. To these individuals, we dedicate the Hall of Fame, and to the dream, the reality, and the continuation of America's space program.
The United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, located on Florida's Space Coast, is the only facility in the nation dedicated exclusively to honoring America's space pioneers. Here you'll share the adventure of America's first astronauts. Listen as Alan Shepard describes the forces of gravity as his rocket thrust him to the edge of space. See the emotion on John Glenn's face as he becomes the first American to circle the planet. Feel the universal pride as you overhear revealing conversations between mission control and the astronauts. Learn about the amazing men who took the hopes and the dreams of a nation to the moon and redefined the word hero.
The birth cry of the space age is Russian. The 184-pound satellite, called Sputnik, circles the world every 96 minutes. For the Soviets, it is a stunning technological triumph. For America, a staggering psychological blow. Overnight, the balance of power shifts. America's first attempt to match the Soviet feat, Vanguard, ends in failure. But out of it grows Explorer. Near midnight on the last day of January 1958, it becomes the first American satellite to achieve orbit. It will stay in space 12 years, complete 58,000 orbits, and put America squarely in the space race. Three weeks before America, Russia sends the first man into space. 27-year-old Yuri Gagarin circles the Earth once and changes it forever. Using a modified Redstone rocket, America can only make a short suborbital flight. But astronaut Alan Shepard maneuvers his ship in space, an achievement the Soviets cannot claim. With only 15 minutes experience in space, America's new president makes a startling challenge in a startling time frame.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Take your pictures at will, gentlemen. Take pictures now. Please all sit down.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are introducing to you and to the world these men who have been selected to begin training for orbital space flight. These men, the nation's Project Mercury astronauts, are here after a long and perhaps unprecedented series of evaluations which told our medical consultants and scientists of their superb adaptability to their coming flight. It's my pleasure to introduce to you, and I consider it a very real honor, gentlemen. From your right, Malcolm S. Carpenter, Leroy G. Cooper, John H. Glenn, Virgil I. Grissom, Walter M. Schirra, Alan B. Shepard, Donald K. Slayton.
The question is, did these gentlemen ever think about flying into space before the announcement of Project Mercury was made?
In my particular case, the answer is definitely yes.
I'm just going to say yes, and for a long time.
Yes and yes.
I would give my left arm to be the first man in space.
And I've been interested in it for a long time.
I've entertained thoughts for some years of possibilities of space flight.
We've been flying in space as far as our environment goes for many years. But as far as going higher, that's just one more step.
These, ladies and gentlemen, are the nation's Mercury astronauts.
At 36, Alan Shepard Jr. is considered among the best test pilots in the Navy, but his career in flight begins at sea. Born in New Hampshire, he graduates the Naval Academy in 1944 and joins the destroyer USS Cogswell with the invasion fleet off Okinawa. Protecting the landings, Shepard survives 10 kamikaze attacks and sees the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay. He earns his Navy wings in 1947, and 3 years later is recommended for Navy Test Pilot School, an almost unheard of achievement for a 27-year-old lieutenant. He draws important assignments flight testing Crusaders, Banshees, Demons, and Tiger Cats in their first carrier takeoffs and landings. When NASA calls for Project Mercury volunteers, Shepard is a commander, Naval War College graduate, and test pilot instructor with 5,700 hours flying time. But his greatest achievements in flight lie ahead. Spring 1961. America stands on the threshold of space. Its hopes and fears invested in the man who must cross it, Alan Shepard. It is a test flight of staggering risk. Using a rocket and spacecraft, which have never carried a man. Filled with highly explosive liquid fuel, the 8-story Redstone is a modified ballistic missile. In its first test flight, it attains an altitude of 6 inches. The Mercury spacecraft has gone into outer space only 3 times. On 6 occasions, it's gone nowhere. But for Shepard, NASA, and the nation, there is no going back. If America is to catch up to the Soviets, Alan Shepard must ride the Redstone into space. The Soviets call their spacecraft Vostok, or East. Shepard christens his Freedom 7. At 5:15 a.m., he mans his capsule. For 4 hours, the countdown is halted repeatedly as problem after problem occur. At T-minus 2 minutes 40 seconds, another hold. Fuel pressure in the Redstone runs dangerously high, threatening to end the mission. At 9:34 a.m., Redstone and the America's Manned Space Program come to life.
All Roger, lift off and the clock has started. Yes, sir, reading you loud and clear.
88 seconds later, the rocket begins shaking so violently, Shepard has trouble reading the instruments. At T plus 142 seconds, the booster cuts away, and the vibration stops. Suddenly, Alan Shepard is flying at 5,000 miles an hour, 116 miles in space. America has its first look at itself.
On the periscope, what a beautiful view.
The flight is brief. With the heat of re-entry, cabin temperature soars to 111 degrees.
Retro 1.
But Freedom 7 flies higher and faster than any man before.
The members of the House and Senate State Committee.
He returns, a hero.
And this decoration, which is going from the ground up. Yeah.
Just 18 days afterward, President Kennedy issues a startling challenge.
To achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Alan Shepard will fulfill Kennedy's vision. In 1971, he will become the 5th man and only Mercury astronaut to walk on the moon. At 5 foot 7 inches, Virgil Gus Grissom is the smallest of the astronauts. But size is no measure of the man. Born in Indiana, he graduates high school in 1944 and joins the Army Air Corps. But the war ends before the 19-year-old Grissom wins his wings. He earns an engineering degree at Purdue and returns to the Air Force, winning his wings at the height of the Korean War. Flying Sabre jets with the 334th Fighter Squadron, Grissom survives 100 combat missions and returns as a jet instructor. After attending the Air Force Institute of Technology, he completes test pilot school at Edwards, pushing experimental fighter planes and himself to the limit. When the call comes for Project Mercury volunteers, Grissom, just 33, is a captain with a Distinguished Flying Cross, Air Medal, and 4,600 hours flying time. But his greatest adventure has only begun. Two and a half months after Alan Shepard, America prepares to send its second man into space. At 3:58 a.m., Gus Grissom mans his spacecraft, Liberty Bell 7. It features 2 critical modifications, a window and an explosive hatch. At T-minus 45 minutes, the launch is delayed when one of the bolts is found misaligned.
3, 2.
After 2 more holds, the Redstone's boosters ignite, and Liberty Bell 7 lifts off.
Okay, the fuel is go, about 1 1/4.
Like Shepard's, the flight is brief, 15 minutes, 37 seconds. Grissom reaches an altitude of 118 miles before splashing down. The capsule lands with a jolt, then unexpectedly turns over. Grissom's window is underwater. Suddenly, in Grissom's words, I heard the hatch blow. I lifted the helmet and pulled myself out. I noticed a line from the dye marker can snagged over my shoulder. The spacecraft was sinking. and I thought I'd be dragged down with it. Freeing himself, Grissom sees the recovery helicopter atop the spacecraft, all three of its landing gear in the water. Flooding rapidly, Liberty Bell 7 weighs 2.5 tons, a half-ton more than the chopper can lift. At full power, the chopper pulls up, leaving Grissom behind. Lost in the rotor wash, his 30-pound aluminized spacesuit fills with seawater. Unable to lift the flooded capsule, the helicopter cuts it loose. Liberty Bell 7 plunges 3 miles to the ocean floor. 6 years later, Grissom will lose his life in a tragic launch pad fire. But not before he goes on to fly Gemini, win command of Apollo, and a place of distinction in the history of manned spaceflight. At 38, John Glenn Jr. is the oldest of the astronauts and among the most celebrated pilots in the Marine Corps. Born and raised in Ohio, he's attending college when the Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor and immediately joins the Marines. Winning his wings in 1943, he joins Marine Fighter Squadron 155 in the Pacific and survives 59 combat missions. Flying Sabre jets in Korea, he completes 63 combat missions with the Marines, 27 with the Air Force, and downs 3 MiGs. As a test pilot after the war, he makes the first supersonic crossing of the U.S. in record-setting time. When NASA calls for astronauts, Glenn is a major with 5 distinguished flying crosses, Air Medal, and 5,500 hours flying time. But his greatest achievement is about to happen. Winter, 1962. America prepares to send a man into orbit and holds its breath.
Condition is excellent. Colonel Glenn at Cape Canaveral. And then astronaut Glenn, will weather still remains the big question mark. But the countdown for John Glenn, the countdown is again underway.
The country's hopes and astronaut John Glenn ride on a temperamental rocket called Atlas. In test flights, its failure rate is 43%. Just 6 months before, all 7 Mercury astronauts watch Atlas show its dark side. On the morning of February 20th, the 130-ton Atlas awaits its 168-pound pilot. America's destiny in space now rides with one man in a ship called Friendship 7. For Alan Shepard and the other Mercury astronauts, the tension builds.
5.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
2, 1, 0.
America enters the moon race at 17,500 miles per hour.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous.
Friendship 7 circles the globe in 90 minutes. Then, over the Indian Ocean, an ominous warning light signals disaster. Instruments indicate the capsule's landing bag has deployed, freeing the heat shield. Without it, the ship will burn up on re-entry, with a temperature 5 times that the surface of the sun. Mercury's designer proposes a solution. Leave the retro package on during re-entry, and it may hold the shield in place.
This is Friendship 7. What is the reason for this? Do you have any reason? Over. Not at this time. This is the judgment of Cape Flight. Roger. Say again your instructions, please. Over. Go ahead, Cape. You're going out.
Out of radio contact, John Glenn now faces trial by fire.
This is Friendship 7. I think the pack just let go. This is Friendship 7, a real fireball outside.
Main suit is on green. Shoot us out in race condition at 10,800 feet and beautiful shoot. Shoot looks good. On O2 emergency and the shoot looks very good.
Friendship 7 returns to Earth after circling it 3 times. John Glenn puts America a step closer to the moon and changes its view of the world. His first space flight is his last, but it will propel him to the Senate, where he will champion America's role in the exploration of space.
May God grant us the wisdom and guidance to use it wisely. Thank you, General.
Of all the original astronauts, none knows more about airborne electronics and communications than 34-year-old Scott Carpenter. Born in Boulder, Colorado, he is a naval aviation cadet at 18 and about to get his wings when the war abruptly ends. At the University of Colorado, he earns a degree in aeronautical engineering and returns to the Navy and flight in 1949. With Patrol Squadron 6 during the Korean War, Carpenter's missions are difficult and dangerous. Flying low and level, his unarmed plane is an easy target. His flying skills earn him a place in Navy Test Pilot School in 1954, where he flight tests a new generation of airborne electronics. When NASA calls for astronauts, Scott Carpenter is a lieutenant, graduate of the Navy's Electronics and Intelligence Schools, with 3,500 hours flying time. But his most important mission is just beginning. Three months after John Glenn's flight, his backup pilot, astronaut Scott Carpenter, prepares to take his own ship into space. Unlike previous Mercury flights, its mission is science. Carpenter names his ship Aurora 7, the dawn of space study. To make scientific observations, the spacecraft is equipped with high-pressure maneuvering thrusters, untried in space.
3, 2, 1, 0. I feel the liftoff. The clock has started.
At 7:45 a.m., Mercury Atlas 7 boosts Aurora 7 into orbit. Juggling experiments, Carpenter solves the mystery of John Glenn's fireflies.
There's one outside. Almost like a light snowflake particle caught in an eddy.
Midway through the second orbit, his spacesuit suddenly warms. In seconds, temperature soars to over 102 degrees. Moments later, the ship's automatic control system fails, and Carpenter takes over manually. But for 10 minutes, both systems are left on, gulping fuel. The problem worsens when it's found the new high-pressure thrusters are consuming fuel at an appalling rate. On almost empty tanks, Carpenter must now attempt a completely manual re-entry. Without automatic controls, Carpenter must align the ship for re-entry using only the horizon. As he brings the ship in, the retro rockets, supposed to slow its descent, fail to fire on command. It takes him 3 seconds to fire them manually.
Okay, fire 1 and fire 2. And fire 3. I had to put you off manually.
Aurora 7 yaws off course.
And we're out of fuel.
Plunged into radio blackout, Carpenter slams into the dense layers of Earth's atmosphere.
Aurora 7, keep Capcom, over.
At mission control, nothing.
Aurora 7, keep Capcom, over.
15 miles up, Carpenter's ship falls like a rock. Without word, America awaits the worst. But Scott Carpenter's brought Aurora 7 home. And with it, the world's first chapter in space science. His voyage into space will be followed by a voyage to the depths of the sea, where a legion of merit and another environment await him. The biggest practical joker of the original astronauts, Wally Schirra Jr., is a deadly serious 36-year-old fighter pilot. He grows up in Hackensack, New Jersey, and attends Newark College of Engineering for a year before winning appointment to the Naval Academy. Graduating at war's end in 1945, Schirra earns his wings and is a carrier pilot when war begins in Korea. As an Air Force exchange pilot, he flies 90 combat missions, shooting down 2 enemy aircraft before returning to flight test duty. He helps test the Sidewinder missile and is project pilot at Patuxent for Cutlass and Phantom fighters. When the nation calls for astronauts, Schirra is a lieutenant commander with 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 2 air medals, and over 5,000 hours flying time. But his most challenging flights lie ahead. Autumn 1962. The Soviets and Americans have each made 4 space flights. But the Soviets, with 130 orbits to America's 6, are ahead in the space race. Mercury's problem is fuel. Both Glenn and Carpenter ran out after 3 orbits, barely managing to return to Earth. Now, Wally Schirra will attempt to narrow the Soviet lead, flying a redesigned, more fuel-efficient spacecraft he christens Sigma, or SUM, of NASA's engineering efforts. But doubling America's time in space depends not upon the machine, but Schirra's skill in flying.
I have left off, clock is started. Man, she feels real nice. We'll give you an active 530.
10 seconds into the flight, the Atlas rocket begins a slow roll, bringing the mission to a near abort. Then the rocket corrects itself, taking Schirra higher and faster than any man before.
Oh, she's riding beautiful, Dick.
Beginning his first orbit, the problem that plagued Carpenter almost ends the flight. Spacesuit temperature soars uncontrollably.
I am hot, and probably we'll have to decrease these settings.
Schirra improvises.
And why the suit circuit takes so long to react.
Flying manually to conserve fuel, Schirra completes 3 orbits. But Sigma 7's ultimate test begins with the 4th, beyond which no Mercury spacecraft has gone.
Okay, fine. King feels you're in good shape, Wally, and so I have good news. They give you a go for 6 orbits.
Hallelujah.
He turns power down to bare essentials and drifts through space at 17,500 miles per hour.
Here, too. Oh, boy, she's a good little capsule. I'll clear you.
He flies for 9 hours, 13 minutes, setting a new American space endurance record. On his final orbit, he has over 80% of his fuel left and a solution for extended orbital flights.
And we're showing you have about 68% auto and 84% manual fuel left. I think our reading.
He makes a textbook landing just 4.5 miles from the carrier Kearsarge.
Astro Sigma 7, very happy to be back in the Pacific Fleet.
Wally Schirra will fly again in both Gemini and Apollo, the only Mercury astronaut to fly in all 3 space programs. Just 32, L. Gordon Cooper is the youngest of the astronauts, but has been flying as long as any of them. Born in Oklahoma, he flies at 16, attends the University of Hawaii, and receives an Army commission. In 1949, he transfers to the newly formed Air Force, wins his wings, and flies with the 86th Fighter Bomber Group in Germany. He earns an aeronautical engineering degree and completes test pilot school at Edwards in 1957. He specializes in engineering, and for the next 2 years, tests jet fighters in the skies above Edwards. When the call comes for Project Mercury volunteers, Cooper is a captain and test pilot with over 5,000 hours flying time. But his greatest hours in the air have only begun. For Mercury's final mission, NASA sets an ambitious goal, a full day in space, longer than all America's previous missions combined. The attempt will be made by Gordon Cooper. But the goal far exceeds Mercury's original capabilities, forcing over 100 modifications. Heavier batteries, extra oxygen, water, and more fuel push the capsule's weight to over 3,000 pounds, perilously near the maximum lift capability of the Atlas rocket. To NASA's dismay, Cooper christens his ship Faith 7. He lives up to the name. As Mission Control conducts its final check before liftoff, Gordo Cooper falls sound asleep until 8:04 a.m. when Faith 7 leaves Earth.
Roger, have a liftoff and the clock is operating. Faith 7 on the way.
For the next 19 orbits, the mission proceeds flawlessly.
Everything is green here.
30 hours into the flight, weightlessness has little effect. Cooper eats, drinks, sleeps. On the 19th orbit, warning lights go on. Then all attitude readings and instruments are lost. When Cooper tries the autopilot, it's dead. He switches to reserve power. Nothing. One by one, the electrical systems short out. The only thing left working on Faith 7 is Cooper.
I wonder if you'd relay to the Cape little situation I had happen, see what they think on it.
America's longest flight now teeters on the brink of disaster. With all systems dead, Cooper has one chance. Emerging from the dark side of the Earth, he must align the ship at precisely the right angle, the horizon his only reference, and manually fire the retro rockets the instant he enters daylight over the Pacific. On the final orbit, without power for life support systems, carbon dioxide builds in the capsule. Everything now depends upon what the Mercury astronaut said from the beginning, the pilot.
I'm looking for lots of experience on this flight. You're going to get it.
Gordo Cooper proves the point, making a perfect landing only 4 miles from the recovery ship. He has flown 22 orbits, 600,000 miles, lost 7 pounds, and brought Faith 7 home. Project Mercury is over, but Cooper will fly again in Gemini, setting a space endurance record that will win him a place of distinction in the history of manned spaceflight. Only one astronaut is from fighter operations at Edwards, the ultimate in test flying. But it's as a bomber pilot that Deke Slayton first gains distinction. Born on a Wisconsin farm, he joins the Army Air Corps in 1942, earns his wings, and joins the 340th Bombardment Group in Europe. As a B-25 pilot, the 19-year-old Slayton flies 56 combat missions over Germany, only to be sent to the Pacific, where he flies another 7 missions over Japan. At war's end, he returns to civilian life, a degree in aeronautical engineering, and a job with Boeing. During Korea, he masters jets, completes test pilot school, and flight tests Century Series fighters. When the call comes for astronauts, Slayton is a major with an air medal, 5,200 hours in the air, qualified to fly anything with wings. Yet his ultimate flight will not involve wings, but heart. 2 months before he is to make America's second orbital flight, Deke Slayton is grounded because of a heart flutter NASA's known about for 2 years. The most experienced test pilot of the Mercury astronauts will not fly in Project Mercury. Slayton will fight 14 years to get into space, and when he does, the whole world is watching as Soviets and Americans embark on the world's first international manned flight. The docking pilot who will bring the competitors in the space race together, Deke Slayton. Russia's Soyuz lifts off 7.5 hours before Apollo. Slayton's first flight is the last for the Saturn 1B, a rocket 20 times more powerful than those of Project Mercury. 16 years after becoming an astronaut, Deke Slayton enters space. Aboard Apollo, the world's first universal docking module awaits its first test.
Here he comes, just above the docking module. It's real pretty.
I'm approaching Soyuz. Oh, please don't forget about your engines.
Less than 5 meters distance. 124 miles above the Atlantic.
3 meters.
Competition gives way to cooperation in space.
Contact. Capture. We also have capture.
Alexei Leonov, who became a cosmonaut the same year as Slayton, joins hands.
Glad to see you. Here.
For 2 days, the ships are linked. And Deke Slayton becomes the only Mercury astronaut to fly a Soviet spaceship. The mission is an unqualified success. The return brings near disaster. At 20,000 feet, a brown gas fills the ship. Inside the capsule, the astronauts choke and fight for air. Poisonous gas fills the cabin, and astronaut Brand passes out until Stafford slaps an oxygen mask over his face. Apollo and Deke Slayton have accomplished their mission. It is the final flight for both. But Slayton will oversee the flight test of America's space shuttle, world's first reusable spacecraft, and remain with NASA longer than any of the original 7 astronauts.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Others would follow, but these 7 were first. When Project Mercury ends in 1963, their voyage is just beginning. Scott Carpenter voyages to a new environment, 200 feet under the ocean. For 30 days, he inhabits Sea Lab 2, where his research wins him the Navy's Legion of Merit. John Glenn's 1962 orbital flight wins public acclaim, which propels him to the Senate 12 years after he first addresses it as an astronaut.
We are all proud to have been privileged to be part of this effort, to represent our country as we have. As our knowledge of this universe in which we live increases, may God grant us the wisdom and guidance to use it wisely. Thank you, Ken.
In 1965, command of America's next step towards the moon goes to Gus Grissom. With rookie astronaut John Young, he takes the new 2-man Gemini spaceship aloft.
3, 2, 1.
With Grissom at the controls, it is the first spacecraft to change orbit, critical to reaching the moon. 5 months later, Gordon Cooper sets out to prove man can survive the length of a lunar voyage. In close confinement for 8 days, he and Pete Conrad make extended spaceflight a reality. It is America's first duration flight, breaking all Soviet space endurance records, and proves a moon voyage possible. Sitting atop 100 tons of explosive liquid fuel, Wally Schirra proves unbelievably cool when his Titan rocket fails.
Oxidizer pressure is down to about 32. Okay, no problem on these tanks? Okay, we're just sitting here breathing.
When Gemini 6 finally lifts off, Schirra makes space history.
We're just flying a nose to nose.
It is man's first rendezvous in space, critical to lunar orbit and landing. Then, in 1967, tragedy. A test of America's new Apollo moonship ends in disaster. Astronauts Grissom, White, and Chaffee are killed in a launch pad fire. But a year later, flying a redesigned Apollo, Wally Schirra returns America to space. Apollo will put Neil Armstrong on the moon in 1969.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Less than a year later, the crisis is getting man back from the moon. Deke Slayton, who has supervised training and selection of all Gemini and Apollo crews, now faces losing those aboard Apollo 13.
And there's one whole side of that spacecraft missing. The whole panel is blown out, almost from the base to the engine. Really a mess.
Improvising moment to moment for 4 days, he will help bring his astronauts, Lovell, Swigert, and Hayes, safely home to Earth. Slayton will follow them into space 5 years later.
Roger, tower clear.
Aboard Apollo Soyuz, the world's first international mission. America's first man in space, Alan Shepard, prepares to return as commander of Apollo 14. Atop Saturn, a rocket 100 times as powerful as the red stone he first rode into space. Unlike his first 15-minute flight, this one occupies 9 days until Alan Shepard touches down.
And 3 feet per second, contact now. Stop. Auto. We're on the surface.
10 years after making America's first space flight, Shepard realizes the Mercury astronaut's dream and sets foot on the moon. America's one small step for man was born of the giant leaps made by 7 men. They would lead a world into space and change it forever. Together, they would make 12 epic flights, take a generation of spacecraft into the unknown, and point the way for generations to follow. The path they blazed now shines for others, on a voyage that is the measure of the best in us all. And these 7 were the first.
The Astronaut Hall of Fame is home of United States Space Camp Florida, a unique, hands-on science camp that introduces young people to the exciting possibilities that exist throughout the universe. Participants train like astronauts on simulators, learn about space sciences, study rocket propulsion, and participate in simulated space shuttle missions using realistic orbiter and mission control mock-ups. Space Camp uses the excitement of the U.S. space program to motivate young people toward greater achievements in math and science studies. Since opening in 1988, Space Camp Florida has played host to more than 30,000 4th through 7th graders from around the world. Located near the entrance to Kennedy Space Center, U.S. Space Camp is the ideal place for youngsters to learn about the space program. The Florida camp also features a weekend parent-child camp, where family members have the opportunity to experience the excitement of exploring space together, and a program for educators, who then can share the experience with students across the nation.